Hey, what's up YouTube? It's me, Whiskey Hotel. You're looking at a Black Ops 2 gameplay. You know, the usual, I don't know, I'm using the POW. It's a pretty good game. I think I was actually running dogs in this game, which I rarely do, but I get them a couple times, or at least once. I don't know, it's pretty good though. But I really want to get right into the topic at hand because it's kind of a long one. I have to, debunk and give my thoughts on a lot of things because I want to talk about the Xbox One and the PS4 and how I ultimately came to my decision that I feel pretty confident about that I'm probably going to buy an Xbox One as opposed to a PS4, which is contrary to what like a lot of gamers are feeling right now, because there's a large group in the gaming community that has already announced PlayStation 4 and Sony as the winner of the next console generation, when really we don't know anything about the consoles except the vague descriptions that were given at E3 and their respective launches as well. And so I've kind of gone back and forth on this subject too. There was a while there where I wasn't planning on getting either. I was just gonna get a new PC and do some PC gaming. Then there was a while there when I looked at it, I was like, maybe I'll get the PS4, it's cheaper, it doesn't have all this bullshit with the Connect and the login once every 24 hours. But then I actually dug deep on the Xbox One and came to the conclusion that it's probably what I want, even though it has those things that seem to be driving other gamers crazy. So I'm going to go through those things and give you my kind of reasoning behind why it doesn't bother me, even though it seems to be bothering other gamers. And the first thing of which is that they're both made to play video games. So if you look at those, as far as gaming machines, not a lot has changed. The Xbox still plays games, and the PlayStation still plays games. The graphics will be beefed up, but ultimately, if you're looking at them just for gaming, the hardware is very comparable. The Sony fanboys are quick to point out that the PS4 has DDR5 RAM, which will, makes it faster because the Xbox only has DDR3. But the counterpoint to that is that while it does have faster RAM, the Xbox has RAM built into the graphics processor that the PlayStation 4 does not. So those two things kind of cancel each other out, and the two are basically the same. I think the PlayStation 4 is still slightly more powerful, but I don't think it's going to be enough to make a discernible difference in if you were to look at one as opposed to the other. And the big thing that the gamers are going crazy about in comparing the two is the used game market. And this to me is very frustrating. I don't know if you've seen any of my other videos, but my stance on used games is pretty clear. I don't think used games and selling games back should be a priority for the gamer, and here's why. When you buy a new game, almost all of that money goes right to the developer, the people that made the game. The retailer gets a very small percentage of that price, and that's because they didn't actually do anything in producing the game. They just gave it shelf space. However, when you buy a used game, that entire price goes to the retailer. None of the money goes to the developer. None of the money is seen by the people that actually put in the work needed to create the game. And that's what blows me away, is when gamers start freaking about the lack of the ability to return used games, is that you're basically saying that you want the ability to fund corporate greed rather than game developers. And there's a whole separate argument about which game developers are actually corporate greed, but the point remains the same, is that you are not funding the developers through used games. And it has also been kind of refuted by Xbox by saying that you will be able to trade in used games or transfer them to your friends. You just have to do it through approved retailers, which will probably be some sort of storefront provided by Xbox, because remember, they at one point wanted to do away with physical media entirely. So they are setting themselves up so that further down the road they can make the transition away from physical media and make it so that they will be the liaison anytime you want to do anything with your games, whether it be buy them, trade them, give them to someone else. You know, we'll see. We don't know too much about that yet. And the other thing that's big with people is they're quick to point out that indie publishers are not allowed to publish things on their own anymore. It must go through Xbox. And this to me is just another example of how they want to control the market based on how they are setting it up with the 24-hour check-in and whatnot. They want the ability. It's just not possible to allow people to publish whatever the fuck they want and then be able to check in on it every 24 hours. I don't think the indie game market will be affected because Microsoft shouldn't want to fuck with that because it was so successful. They are just doing it much like Apple and Google with their app stores, is that the apps must be approved before they're put out for sale, because that way the parent company has a way of monitoring what is sold, and it's not just a free-for-all. I don't think indie games are going away. They're going to be there. That's a point that people are kind of just making up. I've mentioned it a few times, the 24-hour login with games, I don't think this is as big a deal as people are trying to make it out to be. I mean, personally, my Xbox is connected to the internet 24 hours a day. Like, it doesn't matter if I have to check in once a day. My internet is never down, and even if it does go down, I'll just go fucking play outside or like do something other than video games. It's not the end of the world. But that's not how gamers see it. It's either like the worst thing ever or the best thing ever, when really there's a big gray area in there. And this is all circling back to their new point of sale with what I believe the future of lack of physical media is, that in order for them to check on your library and to check on the countless number of apps that the Xbox One will support, it is imperative for it to be updated almost constantly. And I think that the 24-hour thing is a consequence of that, not necessarily a way of checking up on the users, but just to make sure that their things are in working order and that they are not pirating games. The other thing that people are kind of in a rage about is the fact that the Xbox One will come bundled with the new Kinect. And I think this rage comes from the assumption that it will be a similar Kinect as to what we saw with the 360. I did a little digging on this. It is an entirely new Kinect piece of hardware. They did some serious work on this to make it a lot better. It has the ability to track up to 6 people at once. It has the ability to track like individual digits like fingers and like minimal movements like elbows. It can track your heartbeat from across the room. It can work in the dark, which is probably a useless feature, but it's kind of cool. And I think that this will afford developers more freedom in creating things to utilize that. I think the problem with the first Kinect is that the hardware was not up to par enough to make it worth developers' time to produce content for that peripheral, and now they are really going all out to make the Kinect like worth using in developers' eyes. The other thing that's been freaking people out is that it's a fully HD camera, and because it will likely be connected to the internet at all times, and with all those NSA spy things, a lot of people are sketched out about having an HD camera in their living room at all times. I gotta say, it does sketch me out a little bit as well, but not to the point where I'm not gonna buy it. And there was a rumor going around that the Xbox Kinect cannot be turned off. I read another thing that Xbox had refuted that, saying that it could be turned off. I don't know what the truth is on that. We'll just have to wait and see. But I do know that on Amazon there's a company that sells Xbox Kinect covers, which covers the lens but keeps the mic fully working so that you can still talk to your Xbox and control it with your voice without the fear of the government looking at your ball sack. And that Kinect is going to come in handy when you start to look at all of the other things the Xbox One can do. And this is what sets it apart, in my eyes, from the PS4. They are creating a total media device. It is going to be a box that plays video games, but you also plug your modem into it and you plug your cable box into it to create a device that can control your entire living room. So say you're playing Xbox, you lost track of time, there was a basketball game you want to see. You just tell your Xbox to change to ESPN. It changes right to ESPN without interrupting your game progress. You don't have to change inputs or anything. You're looking at the game, you realize your team is playing your buddy's favorite team. You want to call him up and talk shit about it. You can overlay a Skype chat on the side. Watch the game with your friend even if you're in different cities. If you don't want to do the Skype thing, but you have a fantasy team, you can overlay Internet Explorer on the side, pull up your fantasy team, watch it almost picture-in-picture the game and your fantasy team. I think the possibilities are endless when you look at this software and this feature. And to me, that's what sets it apart from PS4, is that Xbox is really coming to the party with something that could change the entire game. Like, they want to revamp your entire living room and make it all go through the Xbox, while PS4 just made another gaming system that can do all the same shit. I mean, you can play video games on it, you can connect to the internet, you can watch Netflix, you can watch Hulu, and then they have a new controller that can read facial expressions and stuff. But when I compare the two, one is just an updated version of the previous console, and the other one is something entirely new. And I understand the resistance from gamers to something entirely new, but I think if you look at it objectively, especially from a point of view like mine, where I don't play games that much anymore, I would love to have a system that can just do it all. I'm actually really excited now as to the possibilities of the Xbox One and what really creative people such as game developers are going to do to utilize these features, because like I said, I think they're endless. But if you disagree with me, or if I got something wrong, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm still trying to wade through all of the propaganda from both sides to try and figure out the true stories, much like everyone else. So if I got something wrong, feel free to let me know. Or if you have an opinion of your own, feel free to let me know too. I would love to see a flame war in the comments. Just fanboy on fanboy, fuck you. And that's it for this video. I'll see you next time. Later, dudes.